the 4th of September 2022, at approximately 12:45 p.m., two men entered the St. Louis Chess Club. What happened in the next few hours is a mystery we may never fully unravel. But what is certain is that the chess world will never be the same. The first man to enter the building is world champion Magnus Carlsen, the wonder boy who, it seems, can do nothing wrong. He wins every championship, hangs out with billionaires and parties with supermodels, while legions of fans applaud his every move. The second man to enter the building is Hans Niemann, a 19-year-old American who has just recently entered the elite chess world. In his own eyes, Grandmaster Niemann is a chess genius who is about to rightfully claim his spot as one of the best players in the world. In the eyes of the chess community, however, Hans Niemann is a running joke, a meme.
Hans, yesterday was a terrible day for you, and today you start out with a masterpiece. How would you summarize it?
Chess speaks for itself.
Is it something special doing this against Magnus, Hans?
Hans is a known cheater who has twice been banned from the website chess.com for using computer assistance to win his games. He has also exhibited bizarre and frankly disturbing behavior when losing.
Like, the fact that I'm alive at this moment is a miracle, because after I lost this first game, I think I was really just ready to just go into the ocean and never come back.
When Magnus Carlsen sits down to play Hans Niemann, he has not lost a single game with white in more than 2 years. In fact, Magnus Carlsen has been so dominant that he has elected to not defend his world championship title, because frankly, there is no point. Over the past decade, it has become clear that nobody alive can challenge him. Instead, he has set an unprecedented goal for himself: to climb to 2,900 in the ELO chess rating list. Doing so would eliminate all doubt that Magnus Carlsen is the best chess player not in the world today, but in history. On this day, however, Magnus Carlsen gets completely outplayed by his young opponent and loses the game seemingly without putting up a fight. This blow causes Magnus to drop 7 rating points, while Hans is catapulted into chess stardom, crossing the magical threshold of 2,700 ELO rating points, thus becoming a so-called super grandmaster. With the win, Hans is also now leading the tournament. At the conclusion of the game, the now super grandmaster must have been able to almost smell the $100,000 first prize, a trivial sum for multi-millionaire Magnus Carlsen, but a positively life-changing amount of money for Hans Niemann, who describes himself as a chess bum living in a suitcase. On September 5th, Grandmaster Shakhriyar Mamidjarov enters the Sinkfield Chess Club and sits down to play Magnus Carlsen in the 4th round of the tournament. Shakhriyar sits motionless in his chair as the minutes pass by with no sign of the world champion. After 10 minutes, he wins the game by default and is then made aware of an enigmatic tweet posted by Magnus Carlsen. "I've withdrawn from the tournament. I've always enjoyed playing in the St. Louis Chess Club and hope to be back in the future." The post is accompanied by a short clip of legendary football manager Mourinho.
"I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble. And I don't want to be in big trouble."
When Hans Niemann arrives at the tournament, he is unexpectedly subjected to very thorough checks by tournament officials. In addition, the tournament director announces that the official stream will now be broadcast with a delay of 15 minutes. These are standard anti-cheating measures that had, until this day, not been used in the Sinkfield Cup chess tournament. Grandmaster Hans Niemann passes the checks with no problems and is allowed to play. He plays a brilliant game against world number 4 Alireza Firouzja and gets extremely close to winning. In the end, though, his opponent manages to defend and save a draw. These events cause an explosion of activity on chess forums, with many leading figures accusing or strongly suggesting that Grandmaster Hans Niemann is cheating. Speculations run wild, and every second of every piece of video evidence is heavily scrutinized by internet detectives looking for clues. One thing in particular stands out.
I was actually very fortunate that this opening came on the board, and I looked at this today. And
you guessed this opening today?
No, I didn't guess it, but for some miracle, I had checked this today, and it's such a ridiculous miracle that I don't even remember why I checked it.
In chess, the starting position is always the same. Throughout the centuries, chess theoreticians have developed strategies or openings exploiting this fact. The Ruy Lopez, the Ponziani, and the Scandinavian defense are examples of openings that have been played, fine-tuned, upgraded, and fine-tuned again for more than 500 years. In his game against Hans Niemann, Magnus played a rare variation of the Catalan, an opening that he had never played before. His goal was to catch his young opponent off guard. However, Hans reacted with a seemingly perfect understanding of this offbeat strategy and soon turned the tables on the world champion. In the post-game interview, Hans claims that he had prepared for this specific opening just before the game, which allowed him to play flawlessly for the first 20 or so moves. When confronted with the seeming implausibility of this claim, he had this to say.
I have to ask you, come on, what prompted you, out of all the variations, to choose this one? I don't think that Magnus has ever played this before.
No, he has. He played against Wesley So in the London Chess Classic 2018.
So Hans claims that Magnus had played a very similar opening back in 2018 against Grandmaster Wesley So. Upon investigation, however, no such game could be found. In the following days, many theories as to how Hans could have cheated were suggested. Some believed that a member of Magnus Carlsen's extensive team had leaked information to Hans, allowing him to prepare a trap, while the world's richest man Elon Musk supported the bizarre but not impossible theory that Niemann was using remote-controlled anal beads to receive outside help during the game. Yes, seriously. At this point, Hans Niemann must have felt the immense pressure of the situation, and it would get worse before it got better. The world's largest chess website, chess.com, that had previously issued bans against Hans for cheating, announced that they had now completely suspended Hans' current account on their website and uninvited him to the prestigious and lucrative chess.com Global Championship. What must it have been like to be Hans Niemann during these stressful days? Chess was his whole life, and the allegations and accusations were quickly taking it all away from him. And every day, he had to sit down at the board to fight against some of the best chess players this world has ever seen, only to be grilled by suspicious reporters in the interviews after the games. Meanwhile, the apparent cause of all his troubles, Magnus Carlsen, didn't have to do anything. One tweet by the world champion was seemingly all it took for the chess juggernaut to destroy Hans Niemann's career. Magnus had not been punished for dropping out of the tournament, and nobody had demanded an explanation of the world champion. After dropping out and posting the thinly veiled cheating allegation, Magnus Carlsen did not clarify his position, did not give any interviews, and instead simply disappeared from the public eye. 1,000 questions from the collective chess world was met with deafening silence. In fact, at the time of this recording, Magnus Carlsen has not yet shown himself, tweeted, or made any kind of public appearance or statement whatsoever. And finally, Hans Niemann had had enough. After a marathon defense against Cuban genius Linnea Dominguez, Hans gave a passionate 28-minute interview that changed everything.
Chess is my entire life. Okay? Now, if they're going to try to think that I'm going to be silent about what has happened, it is completely ridiculous. I met with Danny Wrench at Miami, and Danny Wrench was the person who confronted me, and I was deeply, deeply indebted to him for handling the ban privately and giving me the chance to redeem myself. Now, after not playing in chess.com events, I went to over-the-board tournaments, and I decided to myself that the only way to make up for my mistake was to prove to myself and to prove to others that I could win myself. Now, that has been my mission, and that is why I've lived in a suitcase for 2 years. That is why I have played 260 games in 1 year. That is why I've training 12 hours a day, because I have something to prove. And now that chess.com has suddenly decided to hop on Magnus's insinuations, Hikaru's very direct accusations, now they see the opportunity, okay, we're just going to get rid of this. I believe that this is completely unfair. This is a targeted attack, and if you look at my games, this is not, it has nothing to do with my games.
Hans' emotional response to the allegations and accusations transformed him from villain to unlikely hero in the public perception. Suddenly, Hans was seen as the gifted underdog that was being denied access to the lucrative layers of the chess world by those not willing to relinquish their power. The Wall Street Journal ran an article on the case. In it, they shared information that the guy with the coolest job in the world, chess detective and cheating expert Kenneth Reagan, had analyzed Hans Niemann's games from the Sinkfield Cup and, quote, found nothing untoward. So naturally, people began asking questions. Why has Magnus Carlsen not said anything? How can chess.com ban Hans Niemann from their website and events based on cheating allegations in a tournament they are not even involved in? Why are the leading chess influencers so eager to paint Hans as the villain? And most importantly, where is the evidence? In 1972, American genius Bobby Fischer wins the World Championship and humiliates the entire Soviet Union in the most spectated chess match in history. At this point, Fischer has climbed to a historically high ELO rating. Such dominance has only been seen a few times in the history of chess. After the match, Fischer had reached the peak of chess excellence. His whole life, he had fought relentlessly and constantly to reach the summit. He was now on top of the world, with nowhere to climb, and so he fell into madness. He became a recluse and then a fugitive, ultimately ending his life alone in Reykjavik, Iceland, just a few blocks away from the scene of his greatest triumph.
Kicker det inn en slags dyp tanke nå, sånn, faen, det over nå?
Ja, definitivt. Det begynte for meg egentlig allerede 2017, så var det en periode hvor jeg lurte på om det var ikke noe som stemte, og jeg lurte på om har jeg det lenger i det hele tatt. Det er ikke måte på hvor mange ganger jeg har tapt og endt opp med at altså det her kan jeg ikke fortsette med. Jeg tenkte sånn, hvordan kan jeg møte opp på en sjakkturnering igjen? Jeg bare la meg på bakken, der på gulvet i fosterstilling, nærmest. Yes. Og jeg tenkte, altså, hvordan skal jeg tåle det her? Hvordan skal jeg komme meg gjennom det her?
What was it like to be Magnus Carlsen on the evening of September 4th as he went back to his hotel room after being crushed at the chessboard by a man who in his eyes must have appeared to be a total nobody? Earlier that year, Magnus Carlsen had made a conscious decision to not defend his World Championship title. In 2023, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Deng Liren will play a match, and no matter the outcome, one thing is absolutely certain. Magnus Carlsen will no longer be world champion. With the loss against Hans Niemann, his dream of reaching 2,900 on the rating list suffered a severe setback. A player who has strived for and achieved excellence his whole life must stop and wonder at every summit he conquers. Is this the highest I will ever get? Is it all downhill from here? For Hans Niemann, the $100,000 first prize of the tournament could be life-changing. But for Magnus Carlsen, it is a drop in the water. But how did a 30-year-old Norwegian, who it seems does nothing more than push wooden figures around, accumulate such wealth? Besides being a genius at the board, Magnus Carlsen is also a businessman, owning a major share of Play Magnus Group. Just 10 days before the fateful game against Hans Niemann, Play Magnus Group announced that they were being acquired by another entity. The company sold for $82.5 million. The company that bought them was Chess.com. After this acquisition, Chess.com now effectively has a monopoly on commercial online chess. While their business partner Magnus Carlsen remains silent on the matter, Chess.com chose to double down on their cheating accusations and decision to ban Hans from their website and events. We have shared detailed evidence with him concerning our decision, including information that contradicts his statements regarding the amount and seriousness of his cheating on Chess.com. We have invited Hans to provide an explanation and response with the hope of finding a resolution where Hans can again participate on Chess.com. We want nothing more than to see the best chess players in the world succeed in the greatest events. We will always act to protect the integrity of the game that we all love. However much we can learn about a person's character from their past transgressions on a chess website, we must remember that it is not on this cheating accusation that Hans Niemann's entire career now hangs in the balance. The tremendous weight on his shoulders is caused by Magnus Carlsen's allegation that Hans Niemann cheated in the 2022 Sinkfield Cup over-the-board tournament. The governing body of the chess world, FIDE, is extremely unforgiving for such transgressions. If the allegation is proven to be true, Hans Niemann will never become a professional chess player, and the goal he has worked towards his entire life will be forever out of reach. On September 10th, Chris Bird, the chief arbiter of the Sinkfield Cup tournament, issued a statement saying, "In response to the recent rumors circulating in the chess world, I can confirm that we currently have no indication that any player has been playing unfairly in the 2022 Sinkfield Cup. This includes all rounds played to date. The whole case hinges on whether or not Hans Niemann was receiving outside assistance from a computer. But to me, the most important thing is the human aspect. At the time of this recording, Hans is still playing in the Sinkfield Cup, and Magnus is still silent. So what is it? Are we witnessing the decline of a great world champion who would rather destroy an upcoming player's career than face his own chess mortality? Or are we seeing a young man so desperate to get his time in the sun that he is willing to break the rules of the game he loves to get there? We are still operating on extremely limited information, so we do not know the truth. The truth may lie somewhere in between. And we should remember that even in chess, not everything is black and white.